Welcome to this edition of Ensigns to the Nations, where we get to walk around the temple and talk about the Come Follow Me lesson. It's a little bit windy and a little bit cloudy and a little bit
of everything. We have sun, the ground is wet because it just rained.
And I think somebody just got married back there, so that's really cool. We might hear some cheering a little bit.
Well, we're excited about this lesson. Every week we talk about 3 things that we hope you get from our channel. See, study, and shine. So when you listen to this particular channel, you're going to see the lesson from a new perspective.
Yeah.
You're going to learn something new, and you are going to shine a little bit more. You're going to be inspired. Next channel. This is our friend
Say
Dan.
hi to Dan. See you later.
Okay, you're going to learn something new every week. You're going to see, you're going to study, and you're going to shine. You're going to see things from a new perspective. You're going to learn something new that you never thought about before, and you're going to be inspired to shine a little bit more in your daily life.
Yeah.
This particular lesson made me think of the Studio C episode.
What's it called?
It's called Soccer Shootout.
Oh.
And so they're taking turns shooting that last shot, and whoever gets the goal first will win the game. And every time the opposing team takes a shot at this goalie, he gets hit in the face one way or another through some tragedy.
Saves the goal, but
he saves the goal every time,
face.
but it's by the sacrifice to his face. So the first time, the audience, the crowd is just, I can't believe it. He just got hit in the face really hard. But he stands up and he goes back out there for the next shot.
Because it's not going to happen again.
No.
There's no way.
But it happens again. And now he's got a bloody nose and things are just getting worse and worse. But he keeps getting back up again. And eventually he's lying down with his back in the fetal position. And he just happens to turn his head to see what's going on. And right when he turns his head, that ball slams his face again. And then he's in such bad shape that his teammates come and prop him up in a chair because he can no longer stand. And so he's sitting in this chair, and he can barely open his eyes anymore, blood all over his face. And out of all the places the kicker could have kicked it in the whole goal, it right in his face, of course. But the good news is they won the game. I hate to... Spoiler alert, I should have warned you first. And they carry him off with a trophy. He can't walk, of course, because he's all bloody and beaten up. But anyway, it reminds me of this lesson a little bit.
Isn't that a little like the Israelites?
They kept getting one thing after another. Just when I think they probably thought, whew, we made it through bondage. We made it through the Red Sea. It's just something else.
Right.
Something else keeps popping up.
So many issues and so many problems, and I think the Lord is just trying to teach them that yes, life's going to be like that. They're going to get, they're going to have these problems, but they better listen and rely on the Lord, or they're not going to get through them.
And that's one thing we see is the Lord is with them through every one of their trials and delivers them from every one of the trials.
As I read through this, one thing I think about is how this is certainly what their lives are like, but this is really meant for us because we read these stories and we experience them, and then we realize that this is something that I need to know right now. This is the lesson that God's trying to teach me, and He's certainly trying to teach them.
Life can hit us one thing after another, and we know that the Lord will be with us, and we will be okay. It will be good.
So this is Exodus chapters 14 through 18, and in 14 we find the Israelites who have fled Egypt, and they come to an obstacle, a big obstacle, the Red Sea. They can't get around the Red Sea. They can't get through it. They can't do anything here. And so they turn around, and what's there is the Egyptians. The Egyptian army is now trying to get after them.
Because Pharaoh, who changed his mind how many times with the plagues, has changed his mind again.
Yes.
And
so these guys, they're upset. They're thinking, after all of this, everything's falling apart. So they say in verse 11, because there were no graves in Egypt, hast thou taken us away to die in the wilderness? So they're complaining, even after they've gone through all those plagues and all those signs, they're still like, why are you having us die out here? I mean, that's honest, that's fear, but I think it's relatable. I guess I can understand that. And Moses responds awesomely, and I think it's something that we can learn every day when we think, why is this happening to me? He says, fear not, stand still, and see the salvation of the Lord. The Lord shall fight for you, and ye shall hold your peace. So it's kind of like, calm down, everything's going to be okay, have faith, have peace, be calm, and everything will be all right.
I love that. Yes, stand still and just be at peace, which is, I'm sure, hard to take in when you're standing there in front of a sea.
Yes.
With sand on both sides and the sea in front of you.
The other thing I was thinking of is it's important that they listen to their prophet. And as we will continue to learn next week, by the way, we go through each week's lesson every week. So subscribe so that you can find out what happens to the Israelites after this. As you can see, they listen to the prophet, and sometimes they do and sometimes they don't, and they certainly have the consequences because of it. So verse 21, the miracle happens. God parts the Red Sea.
We don't normally take this angle, but look at these flowers.
Isn't that nice?
With the temple behind.
Yeah.
Okay, just had to interrupt and show the beauty that we're walking by.
The Red Sea, you notice that God didn't take that Red Sea out of the way. He didn't remove the obstacle. He just made a way through it, and I think that that's important for us today.
It is important. We went out to dinner last night with some friends, and they were talking about that, how, they prayed for help, and they didn't. What was it?
They didn't get their sickness gone from them, but they did get the best night's sleep that they've ever gotten. So they're getting the pathway
peace
through.
And stillness was given. But the problems don't necessarily get taken away.
No, we got to look for the pathway that God gives us to get through the problems, which He always does. So verse 31, we see the results. The people feared the Lord and believed the Lord. So that's good. Crisis leads to faith. But how long will that faith last? Well, Exodus 15 opens up with celebration. They're singing, they're dancing, they're testifying. They say, the Lord is my strength and song. He has become my salvation. So they're all in a good mood. 3 days later, 3 days, they come to some water that they can't drink. It's all bitter and yucky. And they're complaining. And the people murmured against Moses, verse 24 says. But that's human nature. How many times do we do the same thing? We go from spiritual highs into frustrations very quickly. Well, the Lord responds, tells Moses how to make that water sweet. We can learn from that, because how many times do we have bitter things in our lives? And if we trust in the Lord and turn to Him, then He can make those things sweet.
And I think, sometimes it's the fear of the future and the unknown. It's easy after the trial to look back and say, we were blessed.
Right.
Thank you, Heavenly Father, for getting me through that. I can see everything that I learned and all the ways that I've grown. But then when the next thing comes 3 days later, it's now the future.
Right.
And you have to have faith all over again, because it's a new circumstance.
Right.
When we were children, we were scared to sleep at night, and we learned faith and trust that we would wake up in the morning and everything would be fine. And then when we were teenagers, we had different fears and trials. And then when we newlyweds or on a mission, and we see all the things and ways that we've grown, but we still have that fear of what's coming next.
Yeah. Well, and we see a pattern in here. We see that God delivers, which is what you're saying. We understand that what can happen and the good things that come out of it, and the people rejoice. They get it. They get the faith. They're happy, and then a new trial comes, and then the people forget. And this is very similar to Scott Sterling getting smashed in the face with that soccer ball. He gets hit. He then didn't want, but he saved the goal, so that's good. Didn't think anything was going to happen, but then gets hit again. And that's the way the Israelites, they're always getting hit in the face with a soccer ball. Exodus 16, the people are hungry. And so what do? Well, they complain some more. In verse 3 it says, would to God we had died, when we did eat bread to the full. So they were actually saying they would rather be in Egypt now when we could at least eat bread and have lots of food. And certainly that's what we do many times. We romanticize the past, and we think that it was really great then, when really today will be the past of tomorrow, and we have to stick to the fact that today God's blessing us, and we're grateful for that.
And can we ever get to that point where we see all of the blessings of today? You know, and
that's a good point.
You know, what happened when they were hungry?
Right. Well, God gave them manna.
God gave them manna.
Right.
And it wasn't just for one day.
Right.
This went on for a very long time.
On. That was the way that God was going to feed them and help them.
And I wonder if they ever got to the point where they stopped being as grateful as they were that first day.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, right.
So that's what we need to do, is get to the point where we see the manna that's coming every day and the blessings of today.
How many talks?
And realize that Heavenly Father is with us.
How many talks do we hear from General Conference about gratitude and how important that is?
Every conference.
Just think about what God has given us today and how we're blessed. The thing I like about this manna thing is that it came with a condition. In the scriptures it says, I will rain bread from heaven that I may prove them whether they will walk in my law. And part of the rules of this manna is that they could only gather enough that they would eat that day, and they can't get more than that. So he didn't want them to be greedy. The only exception to that was on the Sabbath. The day before the Sabbath, they could get 2 days' worth, so they wouldn't have to work on the Sabbath. But what that was really teaching them is daily dependence. Only get stuff for a day, because tomorrow you got to do it again. And so do we do that? Do we have something? Just daily chairs, daily prayer, daily service, daily gratitude. All those things are really important, and that's what God was trying to teach the Israelites. He's trying to teach us the same thing because we read and study the scriptures. Exodus 17, the pattern continues. Now they don't have any water. And what do the Israelites do? Well, of course they complain. Wherefore is this that thou hast brought us out of Egypt to kill us with thirst?
Yeah, again, why are we out of Egypt? We say that every time. Why did you do this?
Yeah. So Moses learns how to strike the rock, and water comes out of it. And so the Lord blesses them and gives them what they need. But at one point in verse 7 it says, "Is the Lord among us or not?"
Well, that had to do with what he named the rock.
Exactly, right. That's true. He named the rock, he named that place Massa and Meribah. Or something like that.
Which basically means
temptation and contention.
Temptation and contention. So, but that question arises because of that name.
Yeah.
Are you even with us with all of these trials? Which is an interesting thing. Instead of naming the rock, oh, blessing, water, grateful. It's, asking that question, well, are you with us? Are you not?
Well, and we do that all the time. I mean, how many times is there some problems and we think, where is God now? Why isn't he helping me? How come I don't have my prayers, answered the way I want them to be? Where is God? So, the Israelites did the same thing. So the Lord just continues to bless them and give them things to have faith in. Because right after that, another punch in the face with a soccer ball. This is what happens. They get attacked. Molech was actually like a cousin. He's a descendant of Esau, but they go around trying to get people that might be an easy target, and they are getting the Israelites. Moses says, you know what? As long as I have my hands up, we're going to win. But he can't keep his hands up all the time. But, so who does
a whole battle he had to do for 5 minutes.
So how does he deal with that?
He has helpers.
He has some helpers. His brother Aaron and this guy Hur, H-U-R, they hold his hands up. And it's funny because later his father-in-law Jethro tells him, you know what, you can't do all this yourself. You gotta get some help. You're gonna go crazy.
This is the way it is from the beginning. With Adam, you can't do it yourself. You need some help.
Yeah. Oh, he needs some help. So what do we learn from that? We learn that God wants us to do things, but he always provides us with them ministering, whether it's mission or your neighbor or your family, he does provide help.
So I really liked in chapter 18 when Jethro and Moses are talking, and Moses is speaking here to his father-in-law, and Jethro was talking of all of the things that they went through, and he told them of all the things that had happened with Pharaoh and the Egyptians, and um, verse 9 it says, "And Jethro rejoiced for all the goodness which the Lord had done to Israel, whom he had delivered out of the hand of the Egyptians." So he rejoiced. It was a
Father-in-law.
rejoice
That's awesome.
that comes at the end of these trials. And
Yeah.
we can find those moments. Oops. Do we need to start it now?
No, we're okay. Well, yeah, we can really learn a lot from this. That's why we were saying how neat it is. There's so much to learn from it. When we feel trapped, God can make a pathway through. When life feels bitter, God can make it sweet. When you feel empty, God can provide you daily bread.
And just to remember that happens. It really does.
Yeah.
There will be peace,
Yeah.
stillness,
There will
and
be
joy. That does come. Things will get better in the morning. Out of all these trials, it did get better.
Because you will feel trapped and bitter and empty and all those things. Those will happen.
Those may not be completely taken away, but
Right.
we will find a way.
There will be a path through. Well, thanks for joining us today, and join us next time on Ensigns to the Nation.